70% of farmers we asked what they associate with sustainability is passing on their farm to the next generation. It's all about legacy. I just recently became a dad, and it also made me think about what is the future we're leaving behind? How does it look like? So how can we create that legacy, and how can we really build a future we can pass on into new generations? Decarbonization is certainly one of the big challenges we have to tackle here, and roughly 24% of all global carbon emissions are coming from agriculture. So I think we have a huge opportunity here, and I'm very excited and thrilled to have an amazing international panel here with me today to exactly discuss that, how innovation and collaboration can tackle the challenge of decarbonization. I would like to give you a minute to maybe introduce yourself, kick us off, and also maybe say, why do you think now is the time that we can actually tackle decarbonization? Michelle, why don't we kick off with you?
Thank you very much. Lovely to meet you all. So I come from Melbourne, Victoria, where I'm the CEO of Agriculture Victoria Services. AVS is heavily focused on decarbonisation of the Australian agriculture sector, but we have a dual focus also on adaptation because, as we've heard today, Australia's already experiencing climate change effects. So I think the time is now because our farmers and growers are experiencing the effects of climate change now, and I think that the dual focus on decarbonisation plus adaptation is the right way to go. I think the other thing I would say is we know that we don't live in a vacuum. We're on the other side of the world to the USA, but what happens in the US affects us, and what happens in Australia affects the US. So for us, collaboration is absolutely key, and making sure that we're contributing ideas and IP to the global ecosystem in both of those areas is really important.
I think you can keep the microphone.
Oh, right. Everyone else is working? There we go.
Yes, so I'm Marlieke Lingmond, working for Lely, which is a family-owned company in the Netherlands. We innovate and produce robotics for dairy farmers. And basically our mission is to look at the life of a dairy farmer and its farm holistically. So what does the farmer need to make its life and its business more profitable, more sustainable, but definitely also more enjoyable? And I think that last part taps into giving its business on to the next generation. So this could be anything from the milk and the cow health up to feed and manure, but also outside the barn on the soil, making it more healthy and looking into regenerative practices, which the panel before us also touched upon. And yeah, why now? We are a very innovative company, so we love taking on any challenge that is hit at us, and I think this one is hit at us definitely globally. So, I mean, we all grew big as companies and as persons on the economic welfare today, sometimes using a little bit more of Earth's resources than the Earth could handle. So what more beautiful would it be if we also are the generation that pivots that into a solution for the next generations to enjoy lives on Earth a little longer.
Yeah, hi. Great to be here again. It's my third year. So I'm Guido from Krohn. Krohn is a German harvesting equipment manufacturer, also family-owned still, hanging around since 1906 now. So it's a pretty old company. But I'm responsible for our corporate strategy, and I'm also running our venture capital activities. And why do I think this is the right time to tackle all these topics? I probably can repeat what John Hartnett mentioned earlier the day in another session. He was already there when the internet came up. And of course it was a bubble, but what came out of the internet was so opportunistic and so partly insanely good, and some really interesting companies came out of it. So I do think right now we are pretty much in a similar situation, but with data-driven AI solutions. And using these solutions is, again, a very, very opportunistic and exciting time to tackle these problems, because there will be way more faster development possible while using these solutions.
Nice to meet you. I'm Hiro from Kagome. Kagome is a Japanese food company. We have 128 years history. So that our founder was a agricultural farmer. He was the first cultivator of the tomato in Japan when the tomato was not the stuff of the eat, so that the stuff was the stuff of the seed look, so like a flower. So it's kind of the, I don't know exactly the first American guy who eats the sushi. So that, it's like that. Anyway, so that's we are from the initial history of the Kagome, we are keeping that breeding and also cultivation technology, and also that simultaneously we are making that health claim. So we are focusing that not only the producing and also sell the product, but also that we are supporting the lifestyle involving that farm and also the way of the life. So in terms of the decarbonation, so the most of the food company cannot exist without the agricultural products. So I think that decarbonization is one of the key, and also that fundamentally the most of the food company must think to avoid or eliminate this kind of and also that make a challenge against the decarbonization. So this is my understanding of the decarbonization.
Well, thank you all. Often when we look at decarbonization, we speak about, the carrot and the stick. So I would be very interested a little bit, where does your country stand on that balance between maybe the carrot and the stick? And Guido, maybe you can give us a bit of a snapshot how you see that for Germany, and what policy and policy frameworks also play a role when it comes to decarbonization.
Well, I was born 1980. So in the 80s and 90s in Germany, there were Green Party government things going up and coming up, and they installed and they set up a lot of programs for existing technologies to somehow support them to be transferred in a more sustainable way, as for example for biogas plants. So the government set up a government-funded, financial supported program for biogas plants, and as a result of this, today we have kind of 9,500 biogas plants in Germany, and they play a significant role in terms of regional, but also more and more sustainable energy supply. And actually, I do think Germany did quite okay over the past 2, 3, 4 decades. If we look since the 90s, we reduced our CO2 emissions by approximately 25-30%. And now in the AgTech branch. And now the AgTech sector is responsible in Germany for roughly 8% of the CO2 emissions. Number one emission generator is still the energy sector, followed by actually us, so the manufacturing industry. So I guess we somehow did okay in the past. I know it's a long run and it's a marathon and not a sprint, and we have still a long way to go. And our current government is still highly focused on continuing reducing CO2 emissions, becoming more sustainable. Yeah, that's probably our German view, or my German view, actually.
I want to take advantage of having a truly global panel here. So if we spin the globe a little bit and jump to Australia, Michelle, how do you see that?
So our situation is quite different to the German situation, I would say. In, I think, 2 years' time, agriculture will be the biggest carbon emitter of every sector in Australia. We're not particularly big in manufacturing, and we've done a lot of electrification in other industries, which means that the government's very focused on reducing the carbon footprint of the agricultural industry. We have a large focus in dairy still, although most of our dairy is still pasture-based. So one of the big areas of focus is looking at the carbon footprint of our dairy industry. The Australian government and state governments in Australia are quite into big sticks. So I think at some point there will be a big stick around carbon emissions in agriculture. But at the moment there's a bit of carrot waving going on. So
every government in Australia is currently investing reasonably heavily into decarbonisation, but also thinking hard about adaptation, knowing that the climate has already changed.
That's good to hear that there's some carrot and not just a big stick, right? But Hiro, I mean, you have a good understanding of what's happening in North America as well as also in Japan. What do you see there as the driving factors? You spoke about food as an example. Like, is it also consumer demand, or what can be also another driver than maybe just the policy requirements?
I think that's a key driver. That's I think the combination of the three forces. One is policy, one is finance, and the third is customers' demand. So from my experience on a hand-on and also on the ground, what actually moved in the field in the first mile is exactly not policy, it's finance. So that's the clarity of the economic benefit for the farmers and also easy to adaptation. So from the how can I say food sector's perspective point of view, that's the number of the client recently who is demanding us the decarbonization information, something like that, is very still limited. But recently I can feel that some of the customers tend to request us to the food company to supply that some of the decarbonization information. So I think that this kind of the customers' demand could be the one of the driver, and also that this is a key for I believe, and also this is a key for the food company. Food company has the direct touch point with the end customer. And also that we can, how can I capture the very insight of the end customer. We need to transfer this insight to the agriculture field quickly as possible. This is my mission, I understand, and also that's this is a very big motivation to let the farmers or some of the stakeholders change toward to the decarbonization story. So this is my understanding in terms of the key driver.
Malik, I know you sit very close to Guido here, and your country probably is also in closer proximity to Guido's country than maybe the others, but how do you see it? Or do you see differences maybe that apply to you that you haven't heard yet?
Well, I think in general, what we see in Europe is that the public debate on farmers' license to operate is increasing, and that has multiple sources, one of which is, for example, a new generation that is looking more critical to existing practices. So, for example, my children are asking me about dairy farming and how it's done and why we drink milk the way we do. On the other hand, you see also differences, I believe, within Europe, and that's driven partly by governmental carrots or sticks. I believe in the Netherlands we're also a bit more about the sticks, but we try to give also some carrots. And I guess the reason is that we all want to try to bring further any solutions that could limit the emissions. But the difficulty with that is that it's very much deep tech, so it will take a few years to develop. You need a lot of hardware, a lot of smart data analysis, so both are costly. And that cost comes with a lack of a business case. So I believe we should not only innovate on the technical part, but also on rethinking how we can split that cost in order for all of us to continue to use the resources.
Excellent point. I want to shift gears now a little bit and go a bit more into the technology space and in the innovative space. So we can't go on a panel talking about new innovation and technologies and not talk about AI. I know there will be a panel later on, so we're not going to take the whole time on it, but I would be interested, maybe Michelle, you can share a specific example where maybe you used AI already, to tackle decarbonization or in the greater schemes of sustainability.
Yeah, so my organisation is very interested in genetics and genetic solutions for decarbonisation, and particularly around things like breeding values in dairy, which will allow for lower methane emissions from dairy cows. And so we've shown that there's a huge natural variation within a dairy herd, where in an Australian dairy herd, the highest emitting cow will emit up to 200 times what the lowest emitting cow is producing. And we've also shown that at this stage doesn't really change the amount of milk that's being produced by the cow. So we're using AI to really figure out the traits that are driving that difference, and to be able to come up with breeding values that we can provide to farmers. The issue is, as we've heard today, adoption will require a productivity benefit for farmers as well, if there's no kind of regulation requiring the uptake. And the other thing is, and this is something that we firmly believe in, if you can't measure the output of the change that you're making, the incentive to make the change is not there. So the other thing that our teams have been working on, and I think that we've got the gold standard in the world around this, is measuring methane mitigations on farm. This is something that we're really keen to collaborate with others around the world on broadly, because we believe if you can't put either a methane value on a tanker of milk or a proxy value on that tanker of milk, even if we have the best genetic solutions and breeding values, people are not going to adopt them. So for us, it's a really kind of comprehensive approach in that state.
Thank you, Michelle. And I really like that approach, also to make it measurable. And I mean, in the greater scheme of things, talking about AI, I believe moving forward now into 26, the return of investment will be key. I think we all been there in the hype saying, this is a great technology, let's embrace it, but it will come down to, okay, what is my return of investment? How can I measure it, and what am I going to do about it? When we had this prep call for the meeting and I said, okay, I want to talk about AI, Malik said, I don't want to talk about AI. So what other innovation technologies are you looking at?
Oh, no. Did I say that? Well, no, actually we do a lot with AI within Lely because our robotics generate lots of data points. So we use that AI for all types of predictions, preventions, and trends. It's not something I have deep knowledge on, but I do know that this will help a farmer improve practices, this will help suppliers improve practices. And what you see is you still need the data points, so you need the sensors, the cameras, but then the prediction model can make sure that you reduce something much more efficiently, which helps the business case. So in terms of farmer efficiency, that really helps the farmer move forward.
No, excellent point. And yeah, I didn't mean to throw you here under the bus. Hero, if you look at it at AI from a food value chain perspective, where do you see the biggest impact?
Oh yeah, there is no doubt that AI is a super. Exactly, this AI create that granularity of the judgment, the both sides of the upstream and the downstream. Exactly, the downstream at AI is, how can I say, focused at demand, and also that optimizing the inventory, and also this leads at waste of the minimalize of the waste. Exactly. And also upstream, that using the satellite data or soil data, something like that. And also we are doing the breeding, so molecular breeding, the genotype analysis, and also the prediction for the phenotype or phenotype prediction to the genotype is very, very super, I think. But I think that also that I'm thinking that it's not the food sector, but in agriculture sector. AI is great, but I think that simultaneously we must respect that very traditional the technology also. So I will share that my experience, bad experience, so that we try that our agronomists take the very cutting edge technology to the farmers. And also after the POC, I asked the farmer that farmer said that's very, very interesting, the technology itself, but also that they say that trust is placed in agronomists who bring in a cutting edge. So that is some of the real. So I think that AI is super, and also generative AI is super, but also that we must make a combination with the human traditional skill. For example, agronomist is like a doctor. So that AI is limited. So fertilizer good, weather forecast is good. But this is not covered all of the activities farmers need, right? So I think that AI is perfect, but AI is useful, but we must make a combination with the human traditional skill plus AI. This kind of the communication or combination could be very useful, and also for easy adoption for the farmer. This is my, how can I say, the concept of the AI.
Thank you, Hiro. We spoke about AI in this group. We heard about it a lot already today. We heard also biologicals. Guido, if you look at it from a Kronen perspective, like what is the technology field you're the most excited in when it comes to decarbonization? And maybe you even have an example you could share where you had a successful collaboration and a successful partnership, because I think a lot of also people here in the room would be interested in how can a successful partnership look like.
Maybe I can start with your second question. It's actually a good example because it also shows how important these kind of gatherings here are, because we just met 1 year ago at the GIS 2024, one founder from Ireland, and she invented a very cool, very sustainable plastic alternative cover for silos, for pits. And we met her here and we got in contact, we flew to Ireland, and we just got our first trial done. And in Germany, we have right now roughly 5,000 tons of plastic waste just coming from the agtech sector. So I do think reducing these plastics is not just useful for the nature, it's also strong pain of our customers. And we as a agtech manufacturer always wanted to try to provide our customers a pretty wide range of product solutions and want to solve their pains somehow. And their pain is what to do with all my plastic waste. And so that's a pretty exciting approach. It's very, very early stage, so it will take some time to get it series ready, but we support her and hope to be partnering with her even more and try to invent the specific product that is able and capable to apply her invention. And your first question, sorry, maybe you can repeat it again?
What technology area are you the most excited about?
Actually, I'm a technician, so I'm an engineer. So I'm pretty much thinking that precision farming, but actually for me this is just a buzzword. I do think using more and better data to do more and better and more specific and more intelligence decisions in your farming processes will have or should have a huge impact, positive impact on reducing CO2 emissions, on reducing methane gas and all that stuff, and to become and to transfer the business model of our customers to a more sustainable business model. So I would go for this.
Thanks, Guido. And I mean, I must say, I love that you have an example where you really went into a partnership and collaboration that was born here at the Global Impact Summit and showcasing really the impact it can have when people come together. Michelle, as it is your first time at the Global Impact Summit, I don't think you have an example that relates to it, but maybe you can share another collaboration example that you had on your end that also maybe helps some of the people here in the room to understand, okay, how a good collaboration could look like with you.
Well, thank you, and I'd love to be up on this panel next year and to be able to tell you about an amazing collaboration that we made this year, so just putting that out there. So I guess one of the things that we have been focused on is adapting to the changes in pests that affect our horticulture crops, largely as a result of climate change. We're very into integrated pest management. We've got a great pheromone capability within our research portfolio. In this instance, we actually had the Australian almond industry losing up to 20% of their crops due to the incursion of a previously relatively small pest. So it was actually the almond industry body that funded our research project at AgVic. We also invested money directly. The impact of this is huge in terms of productivity. So we've now come up with a trap, which is I think a relatively simple innovation, but based upon really excellent biology. And this has meant that the use of less desirable or less environmentally desirable technologies within the almond industry is really close on the horizon. The problem for us, though, is that because we're funded directly by almond growers in Australia, almond growers want the output super quickly, and so we're constantly under pressure to speed up that development cycle, which means that collaborating with people in the US is really attractive because it really halves the development time in terms of season by season sort of innovation. So we've been really pleased to work with growers here in California and researchers here in California to halve the development time, but also hoping to be able to commercialise our technology here as well.
Great example, and I love the global collaboration, across different countries. And it's really nice to see if a plan comes to fruition and works out, but we all know plans don't always work as we want it to, and I think Mike Tyson famously said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. So Malik, maybe you can share an example where things didn't go as planned, and maybe where collaboration didn't go that well, and maybe share also lessons learned and maybe what could be done differently.
Of course, yeah, no, I think you learn most from your failures, and I think, taking on challenges, doing innovation, it means you will fail a lot. And so I have plenty of examples where we tried to invent something. We do that both ourselves very heavily, but also work heavily as a collaborative venturing arm with startups and scale-ups from over the world. And we actually tried to reduce ammonia emissions in the Netherlands by building this robot that could sort of absorb it and turn it into fertilizer. But the difficult part is that it's quite costly from a technical point of view. And well, so the farmer does not have enough funds to purchase the actual price for the robot should everyone have a little benefit on it. So this is why I think collaborations with the triangle of startups, grown companies and government is so important, because then you can think about how to reduce that cost, how to make sure that the farmer is incentivized to purchase such a robot. So the technology worked, and we had many lessons there as well, because as you can imagine, everything with technology, it breaks under different circumstances. Devices or parts do not work as hoped. So we are in the Netherlands where there's a certain temperature range, and sometimes we forget to put our materials in the climate chamber. And then it's just tested in standard Dutch temperatures, and then you put it into a cold area in Canada. And it freezes. So there are many examples of lessons learned which help us innovate more efficiently every time, and which lessons we also share a lot with the startups that we work with. Because we can sometimes see in a development process where these hiccups are and how to work around that, or provide the materials to do test their equipment outside of their, let's say, native temperatures, just as an example. So what we see is that innovation and failures are both existing in a technological development as well as in the more collaborative environment and the business case. And I think these three are equally important.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think also one of the recommendations I always give also startups, you also have to make sure the culture works, right? The technology is the one piece, and you have to make sure that that's applicable. And the other element is the culture, and that the people also can really collaborate on effectively.
Yeah.
Guido, we saw already earlier today that the situation is not the easiest for startups in the moment in the agricultural sector.
Right.
What would you recommend a startup in a few words as the most important thing when it comes to partnership or investments in 2025, 2026?
In terms of the firm, or
in terms of collaborating with you, what would they need to bring to the table that you said?
Yeah, I think I'd like to show that one word, that's pitch on the field before the fund. So I mean that some of the startup is very, very genius and talented, but that most of the people, almost the investor, can understand the real pain of the farmers. So I think that's if the startup has a protocol idea, bring the protocol idea to the farmers to make some of the spiral up feedback. This kind of the approach, the firstly, This is my recommendation. Yeah.
Guido, what would you add?
I'm sorry, but I must repeat something I heard earlier. Again, storytelling time is over. So at the end, we are always talking about buzzwords like AI, like sustainability, but sustainability is not a product, and nobody is actually paying for sustainability. So again, I have to repeat, sustainability has to be a consequence out of a good product. So if you have a good product that solves a problem for a customer, and you have ideal trials to see that it actually works and that it actually solves a problem of a customer, you have a good product. And if this product have a positive impact on all these sustainability things, this is actually great. But it needs to be affordable for the customer. It needs to have a positive impact on his business model, on his profitability, on his farm, and then that's a good solution.
I like that a lot, Guido. I think productivity, and I will want to come back to that in 1 second. I just might also add, I think, for me also focus, I think, is really critical. It's a little bit going into a restaurant, right? If you get a menu that offers sushi, burgers, pizza, you might think it's not maybe the best restaurant for one particular item. So same also if I talk to a company, to a startup, and they can sell me the world and say they have everything in their portfolio, it's hard to believe. And it's rather also sometimes good to admit that maybe certain things have not been tested, that, coming with a false assumption. So I think the focus is important. But productivity, I want to go back to that. Michelle, if we talk about decarbonization, if we talk about global impact, we also have to talk about adoption. So maybe you can share a little bit about, what you think are the biggest hurdles for adoption. And for me, that relates already a little bit also into the whole element Guido just mentioned when it comes regarding being also essentially bringing money to the table or having a return of investment and not doing sustainability for the sustainability's sake.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think just to throw another kind of issue into the mix, I think changing regulation and changing government policy also has a major impact on the business case for some sustainability solutions. So, for us, the two major political parties in our country have almost diametrically opposed views about climate change, and it's unpredictable as to who will be in the government. And actually that really changes, as well as the productivity argument, the case for uptake of some of the innovations around sustainability and decarbonisation. So I think the points that my panel colleagues have made around sustainability not being the only key determinant are spot on. But I also think that having a more predictable kind of situation in respect of what the carrots and sticks are going to be, to adopt some of your terminology, would be super helpful.
Malik, from your perspective, what other hurdles do you see or what are the biggest hurdles in your view when it comes to adoption? So what could we do differently to increase adoption of sustainability practices?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of buttons you can try to change. And I heard this morning, I think John got quoted already some more times, but I'd love to quote him as well. It's patient capital. And I really like that word because, of course, sustainability should be supported by a good product. But if we look at Lely, our biggest product, the automated milking robot, the first maybe 10 to 15 years, it had no business case at all. It just solved a need and a desire and an ambition to make the farmer's life a little bit more easy and to help the cow become more in a natural environment where it gets milked whenever she wants to. So we as corporates have the luxury that we have the resources to have that patience in innovation. And of course, there's a tipping point in when you should decide and look, okay, can we also in innovation process make a business model that's also feasible? But also that takes time. So for me, when I'm looking at startups that apply to Lely, I try to see if they're open to the dialogue. Because if I can coach them and we can have expertise on also helping them and trying to evaluate if there could be a business case, then I think the technology could still be very, very valuable, even if at the moment they are pitching, the business case is not quite there. So I think there's a dialogue and a pivoting point.
excellent point, and I like that perspective that sometimes also we have to be a bit more patient and have a little bit of a long-term plan, but it's always the balance, right? At the same time to have that profitability and return of investment rather quickly. I know we could talk for hours, but we coming slowly but surely to the end of this panel, and I kind of want to end this round with a little bit of optimism. I think JJ said it earlier that she's more an optimistic person and thinks about it more in a positive manner. So I would also like to hear from each one of you what makes you optimistic about decarbonization of agriculture now and in the future. Maybe we start with you, Hiro, and go down the line.
Oh, I think I'm very positive because I think that's decarbonization. It's a word of the very key word, and also that's for food company, this word is not only the compliance issue. I think that if we can realize this kind of the things that this is a element of the competitiveness. So this is how can I say this leaves the brand update and also reputation higher than yesterday. So this is my thing.
Thank you, Guido.
Actually, I'm actually always pretty confident in the future. I know that it's right now tough times everywhere. So everybody is pretty much struggling with so much uncertainty in the world and stuff like that. But there's always, light at the end of the tunnel. And to again repeat what you said, we got to be patient. We got to be focused. We got to trust on our own strengths, and times will change, and we got to make sure that we don't act like, oh, it's all so difficult right now. So I'm pretty confident that visibility of this topic increased significantly over the past few years, and that's basically always a baseline for just acting in this topic and trying to improve existing technologies and upcoming technologies.
Thank you. Malik?
Yeah, I'm very optimistic. I mean, I think an event like this with companies from all over the world who are sitting here because they all want to make an impact in one way or the other, with all these brilliant minds that our companies represent, we can be the ones to take this on, definitely.
I love the fact that we're part of an industry that considers the next generation. I thought that Driscoll's video this morning was really perfect in saying I'd like to be more sustainable because I want to hand something thriving onto my son or daughter. That's something that we see coming out time and time again. So I think inherently this is not a selfish industry, it's an industry that's thinking about people to come.
Thank you all. So if I wrap it up, maybe just 3 highlights that I just took away from this. I think we need more carrot, but we also need some stick to get this going. Story time is over. Profitability is key. We need to show also the return of investment we have. And thirdly, we also need a little bit of patience and optimism to really get this challenge tackled. All what needs to be, I think, I want to quote Ted Lasso at the end, you can't do, if you do the right thing, it can't be a wrong thing. So with that, I would thank this international panel here. It was a great pleasure for me. Thank you so much, and a round of applause